I just had a question for Morty, which really, I thought what you said was really beautiful. There's only one thing you said that kind of took me back a little bit, and I thought it'll be wonderful if you can explain it. When you said, one of the things that excites me about the Judeo-Christian faith is I believe that these things are historical, in some sense that God really did act in history this way, and the way that, in some sense, I can turn to God, and the way he could act in the world today is because there's this past evidence. And you maybe had made a quick comment about it might not even matter, right? And I think, Alex, you sort of mentioned this too about this. So could you say a little bit about the might not matter part?
Sure. Yeah. My mic's on, right? So, a lot of my friends who don't have a strong religious faith try to trip me up on this stuff. What's the evidence that, 3,300 years ago, 2 million Jews, schlepped across the desert and, crossed the Red Sea and the whole thing? Or what's the, and it's like, it's very funny because as some of you know, I see some of my students in the audience. I do empirical economics. I do applied econometrics. What I do for a living as a teacher and as a scholar is I set up hypotheses that are all falsifiable, okay? So Karl Popper would be very happy with me, as you would. And I apply statistical techniques to see what's true and what's not true. And that's what I do. That's what I teach, econometrics. That's what I publish, and that's it. But, I don't feel like I need to take that into my religious life. I don't feel like I need to set up hypotheses that could be refutable. I just feel like my faith is what defines me, and I'm happy with my teaching, and I'm happy with my publishing, but I don't really feel, and this is something I really learned from our friend Peter Lipton, who actually is a great philosopher of science at Cambridge, passed away tragically, used to teach at Williams. And one thing I learned from Peter is that you don't have to be consistent. And I think that as students in the audience, you think you have to have some framework and it has to be true in love and in faith and in everything. It doesn't. I don't feel like a compelling need to apply the falsifiable, metrics of my profession on my religious life. And I think it's true. But if it's not true, I know one of the things, Bill, you said, what would shake your confidence in your faith? And I've been thinking about that. Nothing. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't. And you might think, well, if the Messiah came back, I don't know. I just can't picture anything refuting my faith. It's so important part of my identity. And I'm just not really interested in this historical evidence about where David fought Goliath. I just, I accept it uncritically, and I don't feel like I need to prove it to anyone or anyone needs it to prove to me. What do you think about that? Do you feel the same way? Because we're, our professions, we're not philosophers, but philosophers too. You set up things and you refute them, especially philosophers of science. But people who do the kind of empirical stuff that I do and you do, do we have to apply those same? That's my question for you. Do we have to apply the same standards that we do in our teaching and in our research to our faith?
To me, that's a great question. I think I have to pick between these different faiths, right? As you're saying, at the end of the day, we might agree on a lot of things, but then you have to say, wait, that's not what I'm going to buy, right? So there are these choices that we're all making. And why do I have to pick one choice over the other? So I was born in South India. There's a history of the Christian faith in my life, but at the same time, I'm surrounded by a culture that very much isn't. And I came to America and I grew up, in a weird way. It's a long story, but roughly the idea is, I have a choice, right? It's not that Christianity is the default that I have to pick. And what attracts me to the Judeo-Christian faith is these kind of measurable things. And so it is important to me. It is important that if I am making an amazing stance, that this God is actually alive and real, and as he sort of redeemed and saved the nation of Israel, he will one day redeem me and my friends, and will continue to do so. I need to make sure that happened before I put my chips on the bucket to say it might happen now, or it happens in my life today, and things like that. So it is important to me.
Dr. Mueller? You speak about, and that's also my question, because I had the same question as Morty, because as Morty explains his stance on faith, I think that's something, and we can realize another question on the paper was like, what's the right interreligious relationship? Is it relativism and so on? And I believe, yeah, the answer is yes, because what Morty said is, well, it's not by the same standards as publicly establishable truth that I say it's true for me, right? And I decide it's true for me. And that's a relativist stance that someone can take to compartmentalize claims and restrict those claims. Also, I mean, before at dinner, we talked about proselytizing and so on and so forth. You don't want to, like, dominate someone with your faith or something like that. It's a private matter. It's something that is important for guidance or what have you, or taking a stance in the if. I think that's something that I can understand, and that's something where I would apply the word choice more comfortably than when it comes to kind of like a double standard. And that's something that I, as a philosopher, don't like.
So can I push you on that just a little bit?
So the double standard is this.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you say you want to believe these things as a truth in the sense of science. But on the other hand, then you withdraw them from scrutiny and critical examination, from the need to support certain really scandalous things like resurrection and so on. I mean, we have absolutely no reason to believe at all that these things, miracles, et cetera, in any continuation of the knowledge about matters of fact, could have been factual. They defy natural laws. So I don't think that that's really is not up to you whether that's true or not. Let me put it this way. You're a mathematician. I know little math, so 2 + 2 = 4. I know that. Now, if that's a mathematical truth. Now, if God made 2 universes on Monday and he made 2 universes on Tuesday, God cannot make it false that he has 4 universes on Tuesday evening. That follows from math, not from God's will. And in the same way, it follows from all the knowledge we have that certain things that you regard as factual are not exemptable from, just the ordinary evidential ways, if you want to assert them in the way that scientific claims are affirmed. So I see there a double standard that I would criticize and that I would not see legitimate or legitimized by, say, freedom of religion or something like that.
So I'm not, I mean, can I just say, I'm not making a double standard there, or I hope that's not my point. So forget the resurrection for now. Let's just talk about just miracles. It feels like you're kind of getting to that point a little bit, right? Can anything happen outside of sort of the physical laws that we know and understand? And you're saying that you believe they can't. Is that right?
Well, it's not merely a belief. I mean, I have an enormous, I just explained what stands behind the trust in science as opposed to other methods of fixing belief.
Sure.
I just believe that the best is good enough, only the best is good enough, and the best method to finding out about these things that we have come up with, and it will improve in the future, I'm sure. And we find out things that we couldn't believe nowadays. And just think of something like this. I tell this to my philosophy of science students a lot. Someone in 1820, a little bit before that, in New York, tells their mother, I'm going to talk to my girlfriend who's in San Francisco right now. simultaneously right now. And she would go like, are you nuts? That's impossible. Yeah, sure. It's impossible. We do it every day now. So this is going to happen. So I do believe there are things that we don't know yet. But that's not one of them. Miracles are not the same kind of thing.
So the reason I believe in miracles and I buy it is because, and they're in some sense non-testable, repeatable events, is because I believe they're historical acts, meaning that God is intersecting space and time to do something. Namely, the burning bush as an example, right? I think that was true. It wasn't that every bush is going to burn, but at that time, God made that bush miraculously burn. He has the power to intersect our world, the natural world, and do things. And of course, we can't measure those things because he, by definition, is outside of the tools that we have to measure. So those things could happen, and they're singularities, certainly, right? They're not lines that go through that are measurable all the time. And so that's the way I view miracles, and that's the way I view intersection of history and how God works in it.